Hello, everybody. This is Jeff Mesnik. I thank you very much for coming and attending our webinar with Luanne Tierney here. And we're going to start in a minute. I'm just going to give us one more second, or maybe one more minute before we give everybody a shot to get in here, and because we still got people flying in. It's 1:02, and people are like, "Wait, I got to get in here." So we're going to do one more.
On the West Coast are still drinking their coffee. 10 a.m.
That's right.
We're grabbing our second cup.
I'm having my fourth. I'm just, East Coast here, got to get all jazzed up before a webinar. All right. I think we've got a bunch of folks in here, so I am going to see. You should all be able to see my screen. I'm going to hit presentation mode here. Okay. Well, thank you, everybody. I really appreciate the time and the opportunity to share with you some thoughts that we have here. And specifically, I want to thank Luanne for taking time out of her busy day to sit with us and talk. I know that she's got a lot going on, and I'm not sure if everybody knows Luanne's background, but I will share that with you because I'm a huge fan. She's been working at global channel marketing at Cisco and Juniper over the past, I guess, 12 or so years, Luanne, is that right?
20, 14,
20.
So time flies, yes.
Yeah. Well, you and I have worked together on and off for the past 12 years. So.
Yeah.
So we're very excited to have someone of Luanne's caliber to be talking with us today. I think we'll have some great information here, and it should come out well. I'm just going to check one thing, make sure I hit record, so in case any of you enjoy what you heard and want to share it, you'll be able to do that. And I did. So now I'll go back to the presentation mode. So for today's conversation, we're really going to start by thinking about what, as channel marketers, and we have actually some channel partners who have joined us today as well, but what as channel marketers we can do to really work and support our channel, to understand what they need to do and how, as channel marketers, we can help them. And we're going to start off thinking about why content marketing matters, and wanted to kind of frame the conversation with a few great quotes or some information where companies with active blogs actually receive 97% more leads. So we have channel partners that we've been talking to, and one of you is sitting there on the phone, and he's shared with us, and most of you have shared with us, or most of them have shared with us, that they've actually saw an increase in traffic to their website when they do content marketing, and that their organic search levels have gone up, and that has all helped convert into new sales opportunities for them, which obviously translates very well for the OEMs who are on the phone with us, because that means they will have, and you will have, more sales of your products and solutions. So I want to start off with a simple question for Luanne, which is, what do you think the channel really needs from their OEM partners today? What do you think is kind of the big, question mark out there?
To me, it's all about getting relevant content and not just bombarding information. Think of the way I look at it, I think of myself. I only open emails, blogs, read social stuff on things that are interesting to me. So I don't want to be spammed, and I want who's ever sending me information to understand me. So I want relevant content. I think that's the bottom line. And now that there's so much content out there, it's hard to figure out what grabs your attention. So to me, it's relevant content.
That's great. I tend to agree. What we've heard out there is that, all in all, we're trying to really drive action from customers, and too often we're driving action in a way that, or trying to drive action in a way that maybe hasn't or used to work, but is not necessarily working today. So Luanne and I had this great privilege. I think for me, this was my first time seeing him speak. It was Gary Vaynerchuk. Luanne, you've seen him speak before, right?
Yeah, I'm a huge fan because he's about as honest as they get. No dancing around the subject, right? He tells you the truth, whether you like it or not.
That's right. Plus, he dropped 29 F-bombs while we were listening to him.
Yeah.
So
but it worked. He was highly relevant to all of us.
That's right. He was highly relevant. He knew his audience. There weren't any 12-year-olds in the room, so it was perfect. But he kind of really brought up a great point, which I'd love, Luanne, for you to speak to about a little bit if you can, which is market in the year you are in. What did he mean by that? And it's kind of how can that transcend from what the OEMs might be trying to help the channel do?
Well, I thought it was interesting because what Gary did was he said a very profound fact, which I keep repeating in my head. So there were two things. One is, since the inception of time to the year 2003, there's a set amount of data, right? Huge amount of data. That amount of data is being replicated every 48 hours. So what that means is we are being inundated with stuff that doesn't matter. Email is dead, right? And so what he said was think about how people want to consume content. 80% of content that's consumed today is video, 80%. So if you're an OEM, a channel, and you're selling storage, it's very exciting. But if you're trying to absorb content, long white papers and things like that, that's not what people want to read. They want to watch a short video. So that was in kind of a quick synopsis is market the year you're in using social, using video.
Yeah, so I would agree. I'm going to take a little kind of point on the idea that email is 100% dead. I actually think that there's an evolution to what happened, where video should be delivered with email. And this slide kind of talks a little bit about the threats and the challenges that you're all out there with, right? So, Luanne, you and I had a great conversation about this at dinner at that conference, right? Where people are saying, well, email is dead, and they put a knife in it. I can't figure out the ROI for this frickin' social thing. How do I understand that? And then Google goes around and screws me up completely. They're changing the algorithms. How do I manage all this? And I think if it goes back to what Gary was saying, it's kind of thinking about, how you manage things. Like, is it really about everything dying or the ROI not being there, or is it how you use each of those channels to be effective? You still there, Luanne?
Yeah. I was listening intently. No, I think it's a good point because ROI is the hardest thing that everyone beats up marketing for right now, because everyone measures it differently.
Right. So one of the things that I've been arguing, and tell me if this makes sense to you, is that we want to integrate our marketing efforts to help demonstrate the ROI. For instance, my channel partners say, I've been posting videos on Facebook all day long, and I get crap. Right? I'm getting crap for leads. And I ask them, I say, have you posted have you posted videos or social conversations into your email? Have you seen any of how that integrated marketing tactics? Have you done any of that? And typically, I hear no. Luanne, is that what you hear? Like, do you see people integrating, or are they working in these silos?
Well, so a couple things. One, they are working in silos, but I see what's happening right now in the market with the channel partners from all over the world that I speak to on a daily basis. They all know they need to integrate, and they're all experimenting. They're like, oh, I'm going to add a little video on my company Facebook, and then I'm, doing very targeted messages, and then I'm doing some tweets and posting video. And what's happening is I see them kind of getting on this integrated marketing heroin, where it starts working a little bit, and they go, wow, starts to pay off, and they start seeing people sharing their content actively and using it as a way to engage.
Yeah, I think this stat supports everything Luanne just said. It's, she's seeing the channel partners starting to really kind of enjoy this great opportunity. And IDG is saying the same thing. content, if shared in multiple facets, it's like, oh, well, 86% of the people were sharing, maybe a video that was sent to them from their salesperson, but still 80% of the people are, or 81% of the people are engaging in email newsletters and sharing content there. So those numbers are pretty darn close to each other. So it kind of talks to the idea that people share content where they are at the time and where it's being found, I would say.
Yeah, when you look at these numbers, I always say, think of yourself and use yourself as the guinea pig. Right? What do you look at? You look at interesting content, and if it's good, you share it. So what works for yourself does work in the business world. And authentic, interesting, short content gets your attention.
Absolutely. So I got a few more good questions here. We're understanding the need for content. So the question is, so this was another message I think you and I heard, Luanne, at the conference, right? Which is, how can you help the channel tell their story? And how can you help the channel tell your story as the OEM? So I feel like there's a lot of struggling going on there. I'd love to hear what you see in the field as to what partners are struggling with and what they're able to accomplish and where they could get the help on it.
Well, the number one thing I always go back to basics on when I talk to channel partners, as well as even manufacturers. What's your differentiation? Like, so there's a lot of content out there, there's a lot of stuff, but you have to have your own perspective or your own thought leadership on it. When I did a survey recently, and I looked at 500 channel partners from all over the world. They weren't just Juniper or Cisco, they sold everything. And the number one thing I see on sites, we are the leading provider of. So to me, that's not differentiating yourself. So number one, you've got to define who your company is and what's your differentiation. And then when you share content, then you put your spin on it.
That's awesome. And what can an OEM do to help those channel partners put both a spin on their own stuff and your stuff?
Well, what I've seen, all of them, NetApp, VMware, Cisco, Juniper, they're all embracing grabbing social feeds and content and serving it up to the channel community. There's a lot of great articles out there of what's happening, whether it's security or cloud and the big buzzwords. And what the OEMs are doing is getting great content and then getting it out to the channel, because it's time consuming to find the latest and greatest content. And that's what I see right now too, is many of the channel partners in the world are hiring content managers, right? Just to manage the content to get stuff out to their customers that's authentic with their spin on it.
Yeah, I'll tell you, I've done a few content assessments for some of these OEMs, and that I've worked with over the past 12 years on and off. And one of the OEMs that Luanne, you and I have, you've had much more direct experience with than I have, obviously, has over 100 Facebook pages. And other OEMs have over 20 YouTube channels and over 20 blogs. And I've talked to some channel partners, and they're like, thinking about how can I syndicate the right content when it's all over the place. Everyone has jumped on this world of, I got to be everywhere. I got to have my web presence, right?
Well, you want a single place to go, and then you want to use multiple vehicles to distribute that content.
That's right. So that's where we're really starting to see, there's so much stuff that actually the OEMs have out there that you guys have done a great job of production of content, but you don't always know. And some of the people, I'll be bold, I don't know if this is correct, but I feel like sometimes people don't always know where that content is.
Oh, it's not being bold. That's, I think it's hard to find. Right. I mean, it's hard to find where to grab all the content, because there is so much. Just like what Gary Vee said, the amount of content that's being created every 48 hours. So how do you go in and grab the right content and serve that up to your channel? And I think that's where you come, right? I mean, your service is pretty cool because it's a great service. Because when you told me about your services, I thought, oh, that makes things a lot simpler.
I appreciate that. Just so you know, she didn't get paid for that, saying that, guys.
Nope, I didn't. Promise. I used to services when I was at Cisco, and I know at Juniper as well, because with Content MX does, and you can do the pitch, but in one liner, it's just it's making it easier to serve up content.
I appreciate that. And I think really what we want to do is we want to serve up the content in a way to help tell your story, right? Your social story, and not in just a random fashion where, a few years ago, I always got some of the partners saying, well, I just put it everywhere and hope for the best. It's like, throwing whatever that is against the wall and hoping that it sticks, right? So I kind of found this great, I don't know if you've seen this, Luanne, but I found this great chart from CMO.com, which talks about each value point of each social network. And this is something that I'm happy to send to everybody on the call if you're interested, but it's really a great definer for when you're working with your channel partners to help them understand why they need to be where they need to be, whether it's Facebook, because Facebook is a great viral place. Even though people don't do a lot of B2B, if you share some good B2B stuff on there or have some partner sharing it and people talking about it, then it creates a nice conversation.
I would disagree I would say Facebook actually, after talking to partners from all over the world, it works better than you think. It's an augmenter, right? You can't ignore it. I know partners that have posted events and things that they're doing in conversations, and they find they get a lot of, influence that they can't measure one-to-one, but they're like always pleasantly surprised when they have a client that says, hey, I saw you guys doing this. When's your next event?
That's an excellent point. I agree with you. I think you're right. I think there is a lot more power there that it's sometimes a little challenging to measure, but the reality is it works. I think that's what you're saying. Is that about right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then if we go down the line, so I would love to hear your thoughts on Google Plus, because for me, I always tell clients Google Plus is one of those places that you have to do because Google is moving down this road of SEO, and they're trying to measure authorship. They're trying to understand that Luanne Tierney actually has a tremendous amount of influence in her community, and so anything that she writes, she's probably going to get a higher SEO score, but she'll have to make sure she's on Google Plus so that she can, right? So that you can.
I think you're absolutely. You have to take the time to build a Google Plus profile because of the SEO, search engine optimization value of it. You can't ignore Google Plus.
Yeah, and just for time savings, I'm going to jump to LinkedIn because that's one of my personal favorites. I'm not going to negate Twitter because Twitter is huge. You guys, I think, actually, we should talk for a second about Twitter because I think you love Twitter and you you see a tremendous amount of value there too.
Twitter is a great place to go to post interesting articles. You'd be surprised because it's. I attended. Who spoke at this? It was 5 years ago when all the social was starting to get bigger and bigger, and they said, "How do you keep up on Twitter?" And the way I look at Twitter, for yourself, for your company, for your clients, it's a river of content that's going by. And what happens is either yourself or your clients go in, and then when they're interested in something, they dip their cup in that river of content. They drink out of it, and then the rest of the content just keeps going by. So to me, many people say, well, how do I keep up on Twitter? What's the value? The value is to post, find relevant things. It's a community, but you don't have to be obsessed with it.
Yeah, I agree 100%. And we talked about YouTube, so I'm just going to go into LinkedIn for a second here. So I think the way I look at LinkedIn is I really believe that it's actually changed. It's one of the big changes that's changed the sales environment, where in LinkedIn you have this amazing opportunity, and I think Gary Vee kind of said it well too, right? He was talking about how if you're selling and you want to train your channel on how to sell, all the information about their customers is right there in front of you. Right? So
yeah, you
what's
no longer.
better?
So I think the other thing that you said that I think everyone on the phone should think about, you don't have to be a data analyst. You have data at your fingertips that you can go in, Google it through LinkedIn, get great data, and use it to your advantage. You know, you don't have to run 12 spreadsheets. Now you have that power at your fingertips.
Yeah, and the data is unbelievable. And I'm going to go through these pieces. For instance, a bunch of you sell cloud computing solutions out there, and some of you sell security-based cloud solutions. And there's these conversations where you could be a member of cloud computing in your sales team. There's 277,000 people talking about it. Now, granted, many of those guys on those groups may be vendors that are competing with you, but the good salespeople, and this goes back to, I think, Luanne saying you got to really differentiate yourself. Differentiate yourself by being a contributor, a positive, supportive contributor to a group, and find the members that you want to focus in on. You can get the names of the people that are your best customers right here. For example, you know, there's a gentleman here that was a marketing database decision strategy consultant at Wells Fargo. And you can see here, Joel Clark is also a member of the Craft Brewery Alliance, which means that he likes beer. You know, it's like the Homer Simpson, beer. Well, this guy loves beer, obviously. So if you're a good salesperson, this data, as Luanne said, is right here in front of you. You want to add something to that, Luanne? Or?
To me, the reason I think it's interesting, you know, you show the beer and you show, you know, the guy's title. What makes a way to engage is the little nuances about yourself and what you're interested in. So you can just be kind of bland, or you can be engaged. And I think you just have to find the right communities, like this cloud community that Jeff talked about, and find your voice and engage authentically with your own perspective. Don't be a robot. Don't be the person that's at a cocktail party that just talks about kind of bland things. Be interesting. Be engaged.
Yeah, it's funny. Whenever I think about this, I feel like we've kind of gone through some stages of sales and marketing. And I apologize, Luanne. I'm going off the reservation here for a second. But one of the things I kind of think about is we almost had like this anonymous marketing opportunity in the past, right? We were able to anonymously push email out and just kind of say, oh, yeah, well, this is a great offer. This is a great promotion. And it left the framework of where 50 years ago, where my grandfather, when he owned a candy store, one of the great reasons people went there on the Upper East Side of Manhattan was because of him. It was the relationship. It was the nuances of who he was and how he connected with people. You know, now we're getting back to that.
It's authentic. It's about being people who meet me in person after they see my Twitter feed or see me on LinkedIn. They're like, wow, you're just the same in person as you are on your media channels. What I realized is I have to be myself, because I don't know else how to write or how to engage. That's kind of a more dry. I find I have to be authentic, and what's interesting about me is what people engage on.
Yep, and that's pretty true. I remember when I first met you, Luanne, I was like, wow, you know, I was kind of in the off stage of sales, right, where you're basically selling the stuff. Like, well, you were a global chief of Cisco marketing, and I was like, okay, I'm just starting my company here. How do I get her attention? And we did a few things, and we had some, we actually connected. One of the small things I did was, if you remember this, we got like a little iPod Nano. We put our name on it. So it was just kind of trying to figure out ways to connect. And it worked out pretty well because, we developed a friendship that now was able to extend beyond Cisco and beyond into new opportunities. And, here's another example. I know that there's some folks on the phone who actually sell into the healthcare industry. as they were trying to sell their IT services, the backup data, and there's like big data and so much excitement going on in healthcare right now. I don't know, Luanne, if you met some of the folks there at the conference, but they were just a guy who does investments in there. And there are some great groups at LinkedIn that's talking about this, and people who you can meet who are targeted individuals that you can learn about and target them. So it's just another example.
My point about groups, the only thing I will say about groups real quick is what I've done on LinkedIn is join groups and then see if I find value and go in and see. And then I delist myself from that group if I don't find value. So I've experimented with groups. That's my one point on the groups. Like go in, try it, engage, and then you know what? If you don't find value, stop being a part of that.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, it's funny. I actually use the phrase. Sometimes finding a good LinkedIn group is like finding a rave. It can be really good one day and then really suck the next.
You're showing
you really
your age. Just kidding.
That's true. Well, I've never been to a rave, so I'm actually just trying to be young.
Okay.
Yeah. That's my way. Trying to connect with people, right? But one of the ideas that we've talked about, Luanne, you and I have, is that having one thing that OEMs that you can do to really help is maybe develop your own group where you can drive the engagement on a sustained level, control the membership. So it's not a group of, we talk about how there's 200,000 members in a group, and a lot of them are just vendors trying to out-talk each other. So if you are able to focus in and pull people into a group where you can control the environment, not under a Cisco brand, so to speak, if you're a Cisco, but under a concept, cloud security, where you can basically build up a group that you can then say, okay, I'm doing this, but I'm not going to let anyone from Cisco in because they're going to start to muddy up my waters. Or I'm not going to let someone else from this group in because I only want people like Joanna Shapiro, who's a director of medicine and IT. She's basically the type of person I'm targeting to join my group and make it a very interesting and engaging conversation. Do you have a thought on that, Luanne, as to how you think that might work?
I think you just have to do it, right? Start a group, experiment, figure out your voice, pick certain people to join your group, and people, maybe they're your target audience, prospects, people you'd like to engage with, and make it small and see where it goes. It's not about hundreds in the group. It's about the right people.
That's right. That's about the great conversation that you can have there. It's about that connection. It's about that authenticity. It's about really trying to help your partners by building up that level of engagement in a group that's focused and opportunistic, where they can basically come in and answer questions and actually educating them on how to make sure that they're doing it in such a way that they're not coming off like a salesperson where you're selling a car. You're selling a opportunity. You're telling your story. You're keeping true to yourself. And we believe that by creating these LinkedIn groups, which is probably the most untapped market, I hear all the time people saying, well, I use LinkedIn and I'm creating millions of dollars of new business every year from it. But it's very few and far between that people are actually doing it because it's not as straightforward as they hope they would be, or they get into a bad group. So now let's control the group. Let's try to build that group and start that engagement. And the reason you want to build that group with the content is it creates ownership benefits. So we also heard this, Luanne. We talked about companies today, being their own media company, and that's where you have to start to consider.
And the only other thing you didn't mention, which I think is, it's free to start a group. I mean, the marketing, you no longer have to have big budgets to do marketing anymore. It's about outsmarting, outthinking, using the power of this new social world to your advantage. So in the past, you used to have a big advertising budget, big production budget for video and stuff. Now you can do all of these things. It's about sitting down, figuring out what your message is and how you connect.
Yes, and so, those are all, it's like amazing what you can do for free these days. But, and there's also folks out there that can help you out. There's groups so this is a lot of information, but you know what? You're listening, you're hearing it from Luanne, you're hearing some stuff from me. And what we're going to do now is we're going to talk about, wrap it up a little bit here. It's been 30 minutes, so I really appreciate everybody's time. I especially appreciate Luanne giving us this time and her expertise. If you guys have a chance to ever reach out and connect with her on Twitter or wherever, she is a fabulous source of great information. So we'll just kind of conclude a little bit, and I think we have a few more slides here. Now, what are 3 things that you can suggest to an OEM that can help them help their channel partners?
To me, it goes back to what we started with. It's serving up relevant content, right? Using your social channels. And I mean, I think the thing you need to remember is goes back to authentic conversation and an OEM has a product. A channel partner has their differentiation, right? They need to message their differentiation. So it really boils down to providing, the OEM has a perspective and the channel partner has a perspective. And if the channel partner can leverage the content, the perspective that the OEM has, it's a beautiful world because it saves a ton of time and the channel partner can spend more time selling.
Absolutely. So we'll go through, I think I have some slides to talk about some of those 3 things. Like one,
okay, good.
Luanne said, is provide value, right? So we're going to provide value. Make sure your content, whether it's in an email newsletter, on your website, wherever it is. And one thing that we haven't touched on yet, but we should touch on and make a big point of it. And right now, Luanne, I don't know if you see the slide, but it's got says more people use a mobile phone than a toothbrush.
I'm going to tweet
so when
that
you're
today.
What's
that? I love that.
Yeah, it's a great quote. It's really scary. I love how I'm using Austin Powers there as my picture. And you have to make sure that everything you do is mobile friendly. So you have to make sure that when you send out a newsletter, and look, we talked about how email is dead, but a newsletter is not dead if it's done in a relevant and provides real value. And it leverages engagement. So that's the other thing that Luanne mentioned is like we have to be engaged with our consumers throughout this presentation, right? She said, be authentic, engage, but why not in an email newsletter show that level of engagement? Show that there's a conversation happening. I sometimes say when I speak, if you see a crazy person on a sidewalk having a conversation with themselves, you're probably going to avoid them. And I'm a New Yorker, so I know what I'm talking about. But if you see people having a fun and engaging conversation with a group of people, that you'll engage with. And I think one last point that I want to make here, which, Luanne, we didn't really touch on, is I sometimes talk about creating a symbiotic relationship between OEM and the channel, meaning that let the channel create great content and the OEM shouldn't be so bold and so, I want to hear your thoughts on this, so egotistical almost to say nobody else can produce content that's good for me to share. I should be sharing content from my channel to help them get traffic.
Exactly, for them to put their spin on it, their differentiator. But they're delighted, the channel is delighted to grab good content and then put their spin on it.
Right, and then send original content that they might write back to so the OEM can send it out. So the OEM can promote that story, right? I mean, it's such a simple
and that's
thing.
the other thing that the channel really wants is the OEMs to promote their info, right? Their thought leadership. And I think sometimes the OEM forgets that. But the more they can enable that, that really helps as well. That creates a lot of loyalty with your channel partners.
Absolutely. Couldn't be said better. So once again, I want to thank everybody for attending and spending the time. Luanne Tierney is available also for conversations, and we're going to reach out to you guys after this call to see where you want to go and talk about the free offer that we have, which is to audit your content strategy. And so besides Luanne and Content MX, here's a few other services that you could be looking at, like TSL Marketing, who have a great program for helping channels evolve and market their programs. Bumblebee Marketing is also another great solution for OEMs and channel partners to be thinking about. And then there's Launch International, who also does a lot of sales playbook analysis, which I kind of think that ties well into everything that you're doing. If you're putting content out there to be authentic to your customers, you want that content to match in with all these three companies and let them help you out. So that's an opportunity if you want to talk with them. If you are interested, you could talk to either myself or someone else, and we'll get you in touch with the solution providers that may be interesting to you. So to get your free assessment of your content marketing strategy, you can go to this web address to register. But of course, being a sales organization like anything else, we will reach out to you guys in the next 12 and 24 hours. And you can email myself, and I'll put you in touch with Luanne if you have questions, or you can find Luanne. Luanne, you want to tell everyone how they can find you real quick?
You can email me, or you can find me on Twitter, LD Tierney.
Yep.
Or luannetierney4@gmail.com.
Oh, okay. And if you don't get that, message me and say, hey, Jeff.
They can find me.
I want to talk to Luanne.
I make my email very accessible. Or you can find me on LinkedIn and put my email. That's the other thing. I put my email on LinkedIn so people can find me as well.
That's that's actually just a great little tip for anyone who's talking to the sales team. Make sure you're accessible. So you should always have your email right there on LinkedIn because you want to be accessible.
Yeah, exactly. People can find you, but it makes it easier than having to go through 10 steps to find you.
So on the phone, I also have Lauren from my marketing team here, and she's going to tell me if there's any questions that we may not have touched on that people might have. Lauren, you might be on mute, so you may want to unmute yourself, but is there anything that you want to share? Any questions?
Yeah, we have two great questions. The first one is, we need our marketing programs to be as accountable as possible. Other than white papers, what are some effective techniques I can deploy that would generate leads?
I think video. So short video clips that are always video is the number one way people search for content. So you need to start hashtagging or tagging your content so people can find your content. So if you're doing a short cloud video, make sure you tag it as a cloud video, and then when someone Googles for content, that pops up.
What do you think about offering almost a gated, like a short video that leads to a gated longer video of information, or something or just having the video be gated slightly by a lead capture device? Do you think people would respond to that, or do you think that's, how do you feel?
As long as it's authentic, if it seems like too much of a, it depends on what you ask for. So if it's gated and they get a free blank, sure, free t-shirt. You have to decide, why is it gated?
Right.
What do you gain from it? Do you want their info? You can capture their cookies every time they go and log in. So yep. I think it goes back to asking what you're trying to accomplish by putting things as gated.
Right. Agreed. I think there's an opportunity where if you're walking people down kind of an assessment track, so to speak, of what their needs are, and then you get to a point where you've generated a mutual relationship of content exchange, and then you want to basically say, you know what, we have this great opportunity for you to learn more of video, and then maybe a consulting call. That's a great way to turn your content into the sales opportunity that you want. You can do that with LinkedIn. You can do that with every network.
Yeah,
so,
but
Lauren, go ahead. Sorry,
I just think it's also, you want to just share. You don't always have to do it in a way that you capture their information, but make it in a way that you're sharing your thought leadership. And then usually if they find it valuable a couple, 2, 3 times, then they start engaging. But I find it's a little off-putting if you're automatically, okay, I'm going to capture their info the second. So
Right.
I think you need to think what you're trying to accomplish. And if you want to get your company's brand out there, more thought leadership, because it takes a few hits before you really engage.
That's right. Well, it's like what Gary Vee said, right? It's like he says, you give, and then you take, right? His comment was, you constantly just give, and then eventually those people will want to come back to you. Is that right?
Yeah, but don't be so calculating. I think be more authentic about being generous with your content, because then you will create more loyalty.
Absolutely. I agree with that. Okay, Lauren, you said you had another one?
Yeah, and that actually has to do with videos. Do you have suggestions on examples of videos that work?
Oh, so many good ones. Humor works. Appropriate humor always works. Charity works. Giving back, emotional stuff. Short, can I re-emphasize? Short video. People have the attention span of an act. So I've seen a lot of channel partners and even OEMs do a great job with using Vine videos to capture attention. So it goes back to authentic, sharing, short, engaging.
That's awesome. I agree with that. I think you can look at a lot of different places. There's some people who do these very kind of, systematic videos that are just kind of dry, and you really want to have some fun with it. I mean, even Luanne and I are trying to have fun with this, and you should try to have fun with everything that you do, because people like to have fun, and I think you want to keep it informative, but you don't want to make it overbearing.
Exactly.
So, well, that comes to the end, and once again, thank you so much, Luanne, for the time, and thank you everybody who has stayed with us for the call, and even if you came and went early or late, thank you very much. We really appreciate it, and we look forward to having more conversations with Luanne and others of you on the phone maybe in the future.
Yep, that sounds great. Thanks everyone for your time. And one thought: think authentic. How you can be authentic in your engagement, and that'll alleviate some of the pressure.
Excellent. All right. Well, thank you very much.
All right.
We'll talk
Bye-bye.
to you soon. All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.